All right, just about every offseason, I decide to do some kind of video like this, like dumbest fan bases or whatever the case. I mean, this is exactly the type of hard hitting content you're subscribed to Uncle Lou for. Fuck the X's and the O's. Nobody cares about that. Who are the dumbest fan bases? I've made lists before, like top 5 dumbest fan bases, or I've just like made videos on a particular fan base that happened to be particularly dumb at that particular point in time or whatever the case. And it's the off season, so I decided maybe it's time to get back at it for a 2024 edition. But I decided to do it a little bit differently this time. So I went on over to the Twitter machine. I'm not calling it X, and if you call it X, I think something's wrong with you. It's Twitter. Whatever. Now, I know Twitter is a never-ending cesspool of idiocy. I get it. Believe me. I find myself drowning in it over there on a daily basis. But it is a pretty good place to conduct an exercise like this. The YouTube community post tab or whatever is just complete garbage. Twitter does work better for things like that. So anyway, I did head over to the Twitter machine a couple of days ago, and I just asked the question, who is the dumbest overall fan base right now in college football? And in this video, I'm going to go through some of the answers. So you can't really blame me this time. I'm not really coming up with a list of who I think that they are. I'm going to read y'all's answers on who y'all think are the dumbest fan bases in all of college football, and then I'll give you some thoughts along the way about some of these teams and their fan bases. But not a surprise here. One of the most common answers, really, and this one gets 2 of them in one answer. Average Hawks fan over on Twitter says Miami and Tennessee fans are like Dallas Cowboys fans. So comparing the fan bases of the Miami Hurricanes and the Tennessee Vols to the fan bases of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Dallas Cowboys kind of famously have really struggled in the playoffs over the last 25 years. Now, they've made the playoffs several times, the Cowboys have, and I think they've even won a game or two, but not much more than that. But it's kind of become a running joke in the NFL that the Cowboys just can't win playoff games. Now, in the case of Miami and Tennessee, they can't even get to the playoffs. But this is about the fans, not the teams. Now, I'm going to be honest. I don't have a lot of exposure to quote-unquote Dallas Cowboys fans. But I've devoted my channel to college football. And while I do watch some NFL football, I don't really spend a lot of time talking or whatever with other NFL fans or Dallas Cowboy fans. So I can't really comment on whether or not the Dallas Cowboy fan base is stupid or the dumbest fan base in the NFL or anything like that. But to get back to average Hawks fan on Twitter's point, Miami Hurricanes fans and Tennessee fans. Now, they do have in common the fact that Miami and Tennessee, they both think they're making the playoffs every single year, it seems like. Definitely has been the case with Tennessee a lot of years. Miami fans, I don't know how often they actually think they have a chance to make the playoffs, but they do still consider themselves to be one of the elites of college football, which, of course, they're not. Miami has been in the ACC for 20 years. They've never won it. Never, not one time in 20 years have they won the ACC, never mind any type of playoff or national championship or anything like that. They've just 20-year drought there. 2001 was a long time ago, Miami, man, and no one cares. Like I keep reminding you. And look, the reason I keep reminding Miami fans of this is because they talk about it all the damn time, but nobody cares anymore what Ed Reed did at Miami. No one cares that you won 5 rings during a 20-year period in the 80s and 90s. Nobody cares that you had a 30 for 30 documentary on ESPN. And here's the thing. The entire point of the documentary was basically about how crooked of a team you were. Okay? Oh, my God, they got off the bus wearing camouflage pants, everybody running hide. Those days are long gone. Long gone. There's not a team in the country, I don't care how bad, Vandy, Stanford, you name it, whatever the worst possible team you can think of. None of them are scared to play Miami. Now, Miami can beat a lot of those teams. That's not what I'm saying. But there's no fear factor involved in playing Miami. Those days are long gone. It doesn't matter what you get off the plane or the bus wearing. All the other team really needs to see is the U on the side of your helmet, and any fear they might have had is dissipated. There's just no fear of playing Miami anymore. and going on and on and on about a 30 for 30 documentary that came out 25 years ago, or how good Ed Reed was, or the fact that you won 5 rings. None of that seems to be helping you today because, like I said, 20 years, not even an ACC title, yet their fans are loud, and they are all over the internet. And it does seem like next year is the year, every year, for the Miami fan. It's the famous sign they put up front outside of the Hooters that says free beer tomorrow. Then you go there tomorrow looking for your free beer, and the same sign is there, free beer tomorrow. So you ask the manager, where's the free beer? He points to the sign. There's no free beer. It's free beer tomorrow. You go back the next day like an idiot. The sign is still there. You keep falling for it over and over. And, of course, everything I said about Miami pretty much applies to Tennessee, not specifically, but generally. There's no Ed Reed. There's no 5 rings from the 80s and 90s, and there's no documentary. But the Tennessee fans, I think the Tennessee fans are, is it a sadist or a masochist? Which one likes to hurt themselves? One likes to hurt other people, and one likes to be hurt. I think it's a masochist. That anyway, I don't know. I'm not into that S&M shit. I'm only into feet. I'm just kidding. Kind of. Edit that out. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, how dumb Miami and Tennessee fans are. I think Tennessee fans are into like self-torture, self-pain, mental anguish. They work themselves up every offseason. They've been doing it since YouTube was invented. They've definitely been doing it since I've been on YouTube, since 2014. But every offseason, they're one recruiting class away. They're one big win away. They're one game away. They're one player away. They're one snap away. They're one coach, whatever the case, from just dominating the world of college football. And they keep stepping on the same rake over and over and over again. Eventually, here's the look. You know what sucks the most for Tennessee and Miami fans is that the offseason doesn't last forever. Eventually, the season starts, and y'all have to start playing games. But anyway, average Hawks fan says Miami and Tennessee fans are the dumbest fan base on earth. The Ohio State man says Michigan fans. Now, let me tell you, let me say something here. I'm not going to deny that there's some dumb Michigan fans. First of all, there's dumb fans in every fan base, including Georgia. I mean, hell, a lot of Georgia fans would tell you I am the dumb Georgia fan. So there's dumb fans everywhere. It's kind of hard, I think, to put a lot of stock, though, in this person's suggestion. In other words, if you're naming your team's rival as the dumbest fan base, I don't know. I almost need to make a rule. You can't name one of your rivals. It's got to be someone else. Because it's possible that this guy's opinion of Michigan fans is tainted based on his hatred of Michigan's football team. And I get it. Ohio State, Michigan's one of the most heated rivals, maybe the most heated rival right now in all of college football. So I completely understand Ohio State fans wanting to trash talk Michigan any chance they get and vice versa. Michigan wanting to trash talk Ohio State. But do the rest of us really think Michigan fans are the dumbest fan base in all of college football? Now, a lot of them did embarrass themselves this year with the cheating scandal, putting their head in the sand, pretending they didn't know what was going on, getting lost in the quote-unquote haze, and just pretending everything was fine en route to a national championship when we all saw them get caught cheating red-handed in real time in 4K, as the kids say today. We all saw that, and you got a certain percentage of Michigan fans that are just pretending none of that happened. Now, to the Michigan fans' credit, there's a lot of Michigan fans that have come out and said, you know what? We were cheating. We got caught. So what? I don't give a shit. Now, I can respect that. At least you're not denying the fact you cheated. You're just saying, I don't really care. We beat everybody we played. We got caught cheating halfway through the season. We weren't cheating against Ohio State. We weren't cheating against Penn State. We weren't cheating in the playoffs. We weren't cheating in the national title game. Yeah, we might have cheated to get to that point, but what are you going to do about it? I don't give a shit. I can respect that. But the Michigan fans who still say, there ain't no proof. I ain't seen no evidence. You say, until I see any evidence, the evidence is right in front of you, dude. We all saw Connor Stallions dressed up like fucking the college football Where's Waldo, traipsing around other teams' sidelines with video camera sunglasses on. Come on. Yes, Michigan cheated. Yeah, they got caught. They also went on to win the national championship. So, yeah, there was some serious dumbassery that went on with Michigan fans as it relates to the cheating scandal in 2024. And I'm not picking on this particular guy, the Ohio State man on Twitter. I'm just saying in general, I think, like, as a Georgia fan, if I were to say Florida's the dumbest fan base, it sounds tainted because of the Georgia-Florida rivalry, right? How many people would really take me seriously? Now, it could be that Florida actually is the dumbest fan base. This guy might be right. This Ohio State fan might be right. Maybe Michigan is the dumbest fan base. I just think when that opinion is coming from a school's rival, it sort of gains less traction. Carolina Jackpot. My buddy Carolina Jackpot says, Tennessee. Why is this even a question? Now, this is one I don't have to necessarily agree. Maybe I do. I don't have to agree. But I can respect this opinion here. Tennessee and South Carolina is no kind of rival. Yeah, South Carolina beat Tennessee a couple of years ago in a monumental upset, and Tennessee got revenge this past season by beating them, and it was the biggest win of the year. For Tennessee, it was their Super Bowl. You can't name a bigger win that Tennessee got this past season than the South Carolina game. It meant the world to Tennessee, man, to beat up on South Carolina, which tells you a lot about where the Tennessee program is as a whole. But do you think Jackpot's right? Are Tennessee fans the dumbest fan base in the country? Now, I'll admit, in years past, when I've made a list of top 4, top 5, I've included Tennessee on that list, and we've seen them show up twice already on this list. And again, this isn't me naming them. This is y'all over on Twitter. But 2 of the 3 answers so far have suggested that Tennessee fans are the dumbest fan base on all of Twitter. I'll have to admit, they're headed in that direction again with the Nico, I'm about to leave you hype train that is full steam ahead. It reminds me a lot of the Joe Milton hype train about this same time last year. Now, we'll see if the outcome is the same or not. I don't know whether Nico's going to be the greatest quarterback of all time, the worst quarterback of all time, or somewhere in the middle. I have a feeling it's going to be somewhere in the middle. But Tennessee fans have heaped a whole lot of expectations on the shoulders of a quarterback who's got one career start and threw 1 touchdown pass in that one career start. And what did he throw for, 150 yards or something like that? I don't know. I need to see a lot more from Nico. I'm about to leave you before I put any type of trust or faith in him. And on top of that, he doesn't play defense. And that's been one of Tennessee's problems over the last couple of years. They've got to play Georgia in Athens. They host Alabama. They go to Oklahoma. They got a tough schedule. They think Nico's going 100-0 over the next 3 years and winning 12 national titles and 8 Heismans. That is kind of dumb. That is kind of dumb. Here we have Hunter on Twitter. He says, Gamecocks for sure. Now, I'm not sure what team Hunter is a fan of. It's not obvious from his profile picture, and I'm way too lazy to click on his profile and look through it to try to find out. But he says the Gamecocks fans are the dumbest fan base on the internet. I don't know if I can agree with this. It's very rare that I hear Gamecocks fans talking about things like winning the SEC, making a playoff, proclaiming to be an elite team. I think the closest thing I've seen a large part of the Gamecock fan base do that I would consider dumb over the last couple of years is act like Spencer Rattler was better than he actually was. And I got into a lot of arguments with Gamecock fans about this, which is weird because I would compliment Spencer Rattler and say, look, he's a good quarterback. He's probably the most gifted and most talented and highest potential, highest ceiling quarterback that South Carolina's ever had. But when you watch the guy play, he's way too inconsistent. Way too inconsistent. And as high as his ceiling was, as athletic as he is, as high of a rated recruit as he was, he never came anywhere close to getting to that potential. He ended up being a pretty average college quarterback, which, again, by South Carolina standards, he's probably one of your best 3 or 4 quarterbacks you ever had. But overall, in the grand scheme of things, no. I think you have to consider Spencer Rattler's college career a disappointment. I mean, you're talking about a 5-star recruit that everybody in the country wanted, was recruited and signed by Lincoln Riley, who, all he does is handpick Heisman-winning QBs. And the guy never really got anywhere close to that. We'll see what happens to him moving on into the NFL, but it's hard to look at what Spencer Rattler did in college and call it amazing. But I don't know if I would agree that South Carolina fans are the dumbest fan base, but Hunter says they are. Now, here's one, Titusville Knoll, and he says the Miami Hurricanes. Now, I'll admit that there have been years where I have agreed here with Titus Villanole that the Miami fan base is the dumbest fan base on the entire internet. But again, just like I stated previously, it's hard to put stock into this particular suggestion here because it comes from a Florida State fan directed at Miami. And because they're such bitter rivals, it sort of takes away from the credibility when he makes the claim himself. Again, I'm not attacking this individual's credibility. I'm sure he's a stand-up guy. Or maybe he's in a wheelchair. I don't know. But the point is, I don't know this guy. I'm sure he has integrity. But you don't even have to know him. I experience this all the time. Look, no matter what I say about Florida, there's people out there that just completely disregard it because I'm a Georgia fan, right? I could come on here and say Billy Napier's not that good and Florida's not that good. That's not a hot take, okay? That's a mild take. And there's going to be Florida fans that say, well, of course you're going to say that. You just hate Florida because you're a Georgia fan. Maybe. Or maybe Billy Napier just doesn't know what the fuck he's doing and is in over his head and is a terrible coach and Florida's drowning in its own piss and poop. I mean, both things could be true. But Miami fans, you know what the biggest problem for Miami fans is? Because not all of them are dumb, clearly. Look, like I said before, every fan base has got some dumb fans. Here's the issue when it comes to Miami fans. They're everywhere on the internet. Now, you can't find one at a home game. None of them live down there. But Miami fans are scattered all over. It's really strange. Now, look, I know every team has fans that live out of state. There's Georgia fans that live in probably all 50 states. There's Texas fans that live in all 50 states, whatever. But with Miami in particular, you can't find a fan that lives in Miami. There aren't, or in Florida hardly for that matter. They're all everywhere else. And I've sort of have this theory that I've developed over the years, and I think I've mentioned it before. I'll mention it again now, but I sort of have this theory. See, okay, I'm 45 years old, okay? So I grew up in the 80s and 90s. You know, I'm middle school in the late 80s, early 90s. I was in high school from like 92 or 93 to 96. Miami was really good back then. And if you're my age, you remember the starter jackets, right? Everybody wanted one of those starter jackets of their favorite team. And Miami was a very popular team back then. I think today's Miami fans that are around my age are kids that were bullied back in middle school and high school, and either their parents wouldn't buy them a Miami starter jacket so they could feel like they fit in with the crowd, or their parents did buy them one, but they got their head shoved in the toilet, the jacket ripped off of them and stolen at school by the bully, and they've just grown up now to be internet Miami fans in Tennessee or New Jersey or Michigan or Nebraska or Arizona or wherever. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So I agree with Titus Villanole that the Miami fan base is definitely a contender year in and year out for the dumbest fan base on the internet. What do y'all think? Let's see. What else do we got here? Jeff Cook on Twitter says, the aptly named Voltard. Again, you're starting to see a pattern here. It seems like the overwhelming majority of people, at least in my unscientific poll that I've conducted here on Twitter, the overwhelming majority of people consider the Tennessee fans and the Miami fans to be the dumbest fan bases on the internet. That's the way it's looking so far. Let's see. Zanino, number 20, on Twitter says, Lou, respectfully, what am I looking at? Also, Tennessee's talking about the picture I posted along with the tweet, which doesn't matter for this video. But here's another South Carolina fan. We had one earlier that claimed Tennessee was the dumbest fan base in the country. We've got another one here, another South Carolina fan claiming Tennessee. Again, I don't feel the need to go on another 5-minute rant about Tennessee. I think everybody gets the point here. Ironic on Twitter says, right now, ? Florida State. Now, this is an answer I'm honestly surprised I didn't hear more of. Florida State fans have made complete fools of themselves on the internet over the last year in a variety and multitude of different ways, starting with last offseason and the whole we're leaving the ACC tomorrow thing. The grant of rights is fake. It's not real. It's illegal. It doesn't exist. Florida State can break it anytime they want. We can leave. No penalty. There's nothing the ACC or anybody else can do about it. As soon as Florida State wants to leave, they're leaving. And that's tomorrow. Then it was next Tuesday. Then it was some random day in July. Then it was September 15th. Then it was going to be January 1st. 2 days ago, it was going to be tomorrow, which was yesterday. Today, it's still tomorrow, which is Friday tomorrow. They really embarrassed themselves with that whole deal. Pretty much everything they said have turned out to be not true. All their Twitter sources, and they know a guy that cuts the grass of one of the guys that's on the board of trustees, and all this just dumb shit all over the internet and all over Twitter. Anybody with any sense knew how this was going to end. It's going to end with Florida State in the ACC, not just for the 2023 season. Look, I know this is going to be hard for a lot of people to believe because it seems impossible that people believed this. There were Florida State fans on the internet last June, last July, and even last August that thought Florida State would not be in the ACC for the 2023 season. Now, in August, we were just weeks away from the start of the 2023 season. There were Florida State fans on Twitter and on the internet and in my comment section and everywhere else that thought Florida State is going to be gone before this season even starts. They're not playing their ACC schedule. They're getting out. Blah, 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 blah. It's insanity. There are people now, today, that think Florida State will not be in the ACC for the 2024 season, which is what, 6 months away? The deadline to change your conference and scheduling and all that was last year. Let's assume for 1 second that Florida State and the ACC and ESPN and all that come to some sort of agreement around the grant of rights, and they decide $400 million. Come up with $400 million, we'll let you out. Florida State reaches down in their couch cushion right now, today, and comes up with $400 million. Guess what? They're still in the ACC this coming season. I don't care what happens. Florida State is going to be in the ACC in the 2024 college football season. Nothing is changing that. Now, what happens in 2025? I'll let you know this summer. When the deadline for 2025 comes and goes this summer, I'll let you know then. But and then you had the whole playoff debacle, and Florida State thought they were, 1995 Nebraska or 2001 Miami or 2019 LSU, they just thought they were some world-beating team. Meanwhile, they were mediocre and average all year. Jordan Travis goes down. They still think they can beat anybody on earth. The playoff committee disagrees. They struggle against a terrible Louisville team. They could barely get a first down in that game. Then they get snubbed from the playoffs, and oh my God, it's Kirk Herbstreit's fault, it's ESPN's fault, it's George Soros' fault, it's Obama's fault, it's global warming's fault, it's 5G causes brain cancer fault, it's Taylor Swift's fault, it's ABC and Disney's fault, on and on and on and on and on. And I'm kind of surprised I didn't get more answers that said Florida State, but we do have one here from Ironic. And ironically, we have another one right after that from AJXX_CFB on Twitter that says Florida State and Michigan fans. So, and he's a Bama man. I can tell by his profile picture. So he is saying Florida State, which we just talked about, and Michigan fans, which we talked about earlier, dumbest fan bases in the country. Let's see. Dirty Mike, who I'm going to assume is a Notre Dame fan because he's got 2 clover leaves on either side of his Twitter name. He says last season, ? Probably Florida State. So some Florida State answers starting to come in now. So Tennessee and Miami fan bases got out to an early lead here in my unscientific Twitter post from yesterday. Florida State, though, fast approaching here. And Dirty Mike agrees. He says probably Florida State. Let's see. Billy Billionaire, who is a Gator fan, I can tell by his @name, says FSU. Again, not saying he's wrong, but because he's a Florida fan, I just think that holds less weight than like Dirty Mike, for example, who's a Notre Dame fan. But anyway, let's move on. NC State fans? Okay, this guy calls himself UNC owns Duke, and I think he's making fun of Duke, obviously. But he claims NC State fans are the dumbest fan base on the internet. Okay, number one, there aren't any NC State fans on the internet. Not that I've ever seen. I mean, a handful. I can't agree with this. Now, here's the thing. I can't speak to the intelligence level of NC State fans because, like I said, I've never seen any. So it could be that NC State fans are the dumbest fan base, like UNC owns Duke says here on Twitter, or it could be that they're the smartest. I would have no way of knowing. To me, NC State fans are like the boogeyman or Bigfoot. I've just never seen them. So I don't have any way of knowing. And it's surprising to me that anybody else would think that NC State fans were the dumbest. Somehow this guy, UNC owns Duke, has managed to surround himself not just with NC State fans, but dumb NC State fans. Congratulations, I guess. I don't know. Send some to my channel, though. I'm always looking for additional fan bases here on YouTube. Super Denny Gumper, who's obviously a Bama man, says Georgia and Auburn. Again, naming Auburn, who, of course, is Bama's biggest rival, so we have a little credibility issue there. And then naming Georgia. I'm kind of surprised there weren't more responses that said Georgia, to be honest. I was ready to go with not necessarily agreeing that Georgia fans are the dumbest fan base, but Georgia fans have done some things here recently that definitely caused them to deserve some consideration. But Super Danny Gumper says Georgia and Auburn fans. I don't know. You know, there've been a lot of Auburn fans around here over the years, and they've never really stood out to me as being overly dumb. Yeah, there's been a handful here and there. Now, like I said, he's a Bama fan, so I'm sure he deals with a lot more Auburn fans, maybe even in his real life, maybe, than what I do here on the internet. But from my own personal experience, there's been a lot of Auburn fans around. I don't ever remember sitting around going, man, Auburn might be the dumbest fan base. There are some idiots there for sure. Hell, they burned down they burned down their own tree. They were definitely the dumbest fan base that year when that happened. Was that 6-7 years ago? They burned down their own tree. They were the dumbest fan base that year for sure. Sports expert Max, who, if I remember right from YouTube, I believe is an Ohio State fan. I could be wrong, and if I am, I apologize. He says Tennessee, no doubt. So Tennessee with another vote. You know, they may be in the lead here. Woe Todd 99, who is an Alabama fan, says Alabama fans. He thinks his own fan base is the dumbest. He's the dumbest fan base. And, hey, who might argue? I'm not going to argue with him. Sears Tower on Twitter, and I'm not sure what team he's a fan of. That might be a Florida State avatar. I can't tell. He says Florida. We've talked about them already. Another vote for Michigan here from Evan Perry over on Twitter. Nicholas H. Geishen III. Again, I'm not sure who he is a fan of, but he also cast his vote for Florida Gators as the dumbest fan base. Harris Catlett over on Twitter has 3 suggestions. Michigan and Florida State, who we've already talked about, and Colorado. Now, I have talked about this before, Colorado fans and how dumb are they? Are they the dumbest fan base? That kind of thing. And sort of the conclusion that we've come up with around here is we're giving Colorado fans a pass because most of the stupidity you see on the internet surrounding Colorado and Deion Sanders is not by Colorado fans. It's by Deion stans. It's people that in a lot of cases are not even college football fans at all. They're only attracted to the Deion story for some reasons that are pretty obvious. In other cases, they are college football fans of other teams. They're just sucking on Deion's taint. Deion Sanders, of course, the highest paid team mom in college football history. But here's a vote for the Colorado fans. I disagree. I separate in my mind actual Colorado fans from Deion stans who just discovered college football the minute Colorado hired Deion Sanders. J.D. Graw says Nebraska. Now, Nebraska comes up in a lot of different conversations about being added to a lot of different lists, the We're Back list, the We're Over list, the Dead Program list, all that kind of thing. And it always kind of comes back to the same thing for me, which is that I just don't see a lot of, it's kind of like the NC State deal. I just don't see a lot of Nebraska fans. You know, if I see one Nebraska fan and he's dumber than dirt, it's still hard for me to say, well, Nebraska's the dumbest fan base on earth. Part of this is just a numbers game. It's why, honestly, that's why Miami is so high on these lists all the time. There are a ton of Miami fans on the internet. See, a certain percentage of every fan base is going to be dumb. Let's say that percentage is even low. Let's even say only 10% of every fan base is dumb, right? Well, if your fan base is huge on the internet, then 10% is a big number. If you're Nebraska, what's 10% of 1? Like, there just aren't any Nebraska fans on the internet. But J.D. Graw over on Twitter cast his vote for Nebraska. Little Whitey, our buddy over on YouTube, he says here on Twitter, Miami, again, he's a Florida State fan, so you got to take that with a grain of salt. That's a big rivalry there. Jax29 says, I see us Tennessee fans are getting attacked like crazy, but somehow no Ohio State or Florida. So I'm going to go with one of those two. Now, Florida has been mentioned a few times, but this is the first vote for Ohio State fans. And while I would definitely classify the majority of Ohio State fans as delusional, I don't know if I've ever considered them for the dumbest fan base on all of the internet. Pike Dog says Arkansas. Again, where are the Arkansas fans? In order for me to consider Arkansas to be the dumbest fan base, I've got to see a lot of dumb shit posted by a lot of dumb Arkansas fans, and I just don't see a lot of Arkansas fans of any type at all, so hard for me to consider that. PR Sports is an Alabama fan. He says LSU. I think this is the first vote for LSU. I think there are some overly optimistic LSU fans around over the last couple of years. When Brian Kelly came in, heading into his first year, they were a little quiet. But then Brian Kelly, of course, beat Bama, won the SEC West, and they just they were loud. And last offseason, it just peaked. And then they had no defense all year. They did have a Heisman-winning quarterback, but the defense was just horrendous. But now they're really, really loud again heading into next season, and we don't know how much, if any, better that defense is going to be in 2024. They've lost that Heisman-winning quarterback and a couple of NFL wide receivers. A lot of question marks. Lost the offensive coordinator. A lot of question marks for LSU. That hasn't slowed down the corn dog fan base from beating their chest this offseason, though. So, look, if LSU fans keep up this loud talk all offseason, then they come out and go 8-4 next year, that's going to make them look awfully stupid. So maybe PR Sports is on to something here. Anthony, who's an Alabama fan, says Georgia fans. All right, I'll tell you some dumb things Georgia fans have done here recently. Getting all bent out of shape because Dylan Raiola's dad had a phone call with Kirk Herbstreit. Hey, dummy, people talk on the phone. This might be breaking news to you. Imagine for a second, if you can, idiot Georgia man, that you have a son who's a 5-star quarterback. You have a son who's the number 1, number 2, number 3 high school recruit in the entire country at the quarterback position, right? And he's got his choice of schools to go to, right? And in your phone saved, you have the phone number of some college football somebody that has connections, that knows coaches, that knows schools, that understands the culture, that kind of thing. As a dad, you wouldn't pick up the phone and call him? Of course you would. Of course you would. Kirk Herbstreit and Dylan Raiola's dad have a relationship. This isn't a stranger. Kirk Herbstreit didn't sit around one day and go, you know what? I can't believe Dylan Raiola's about to sign with Georgia. I don't like that. I don't want that to happen. I want Dylan Raiola to sign with Nebraska. Hey, get me Dylan Raiola's dad's phone number. Is this Dylan Raiola's dad? Hey, this is Kirk Herbstreit. Your son shouldn't go to Georgia. He should go to Nebraska. Have a great day. That's not how that went down. These kids, a lot of them's parents have connections. In the case of Dylan Raiola, he's got relatives that have played in the NFL. He's got relatives that are coaching in the college football world right now today. It's nothing for Dylan Raiola's dad to pick up Kirk Herbstreit, give him a call, and ask him, hey, what do you think? Georgia, Nebraska? Do you like Matt Rule? What's going on? And there's nothing wrong with Kirk Herbstreit giving Dylan Raiola's dad his honest opinion. Nothing wrong with it. David Pollack worked for ESPN for years. You don't think at any point when David Pollack was working for ESPN, at no point do you think he picked up a phone or answered a phone call and talked to a recruit's dad about how great Georgia is? You don't think that ever happened? There's not a single recruit anywhere in the country who talked to or whose dad talked to David Pollack at ESPN and asked for advice on Kirby in Georgia. And what do you think David Pollack would have said? Hey, he's a great coach, good culture. He'll develop him. He'll get him on the right path, and he'll put him in the NFL. That's what David Pollack would have said. And I guarantee you it happened. Running around acting like, and then, this leads to the whole, ESPN's been out to get Georgia all along. How do you get this damn dumb? I'm serious. You got to be on a breathing machine. You have to be on a breathing machine. Who Velcros your shoes in the morning? Because it's not you. It's not you. Oh, shit. That scares me every time. ESPN doesn't give a fuck whether Georgia goes 15-0 and over 15. There is no agenda at ESPN by Kirk Herbstreit, the channel as a whole, the College Game Day crew. No, what do you think happened? They have some kind of company meeting, call everybody in, sit them down. Listen. Georgia's won 2 national championships in the last 40 years. We have to do everything we can to sabotage them. That's what you think happens, and you sound like a fucking fool when you talk that way. You sound like a fool. So maybe Anthony's on to something. Let's see. Alabama gets another vote from Butterbean69. Fitzdog, he's a Georgia fan. He says, I used to be convinced it was Tennessee, but now FSU has made me rethink it. They may be more delusional than actually dumb, but it's hard to tell the difference sometimes. It is hard to tell the difference sometimes between like blind just loyalty and fandom versus just being a complete idiot. I would agree with you there. But he cast his vote for Florida State. We've talked about Florida State. He and Tennessee was his other one, too. We've talked about both of those. Here's a vote, again, for South Carolina by Jacob H. McKinney. I'm not sure what college team he's a fan of, but it looks like a Braves avatar, Atlanta Braves avatar, so I'm assuming maybe a Georgia fan. He's casting his vote for South Carolina. And there you go. That was not all of the responses, but that was a pretty good segment or portion of the responses, and this video is already too long. But feel free to let me know down below, who do you think is the dumbest fan base, not of all time or anything like that, just like right now. Who do you think is the dumbest fan base in all of college football right now, today? Appreciate you watching. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you're new. Have a good morning.